The station was quiet. Too quiet. Marcus Hale pushed his mop across the smooth metal floor, the soft squeak of the mop echoing down the empty halls. The lights above flickered slightly, casting long shadows that seemed to move with him. Most of the crew were asleep or in their private quarters, leaving only the hum of the life support systems to break the silence. Marcus liked the quiet. It made the night shift easier, less stressful, and gave him time to think about small things, like the old photos of his family back on Earth or the book he had been reading during lunch breaks. As he approached the storage bay at the far end of the corridor, something caught his eye. There were scorch marks on the walls, black and jagged like someone, or something, had dragged fire along the metal. Marcus stopped and frowned. He had never seen anything like this in his months on the station. No one reported accidents like this, and the security logs showed nothing unusual. Must be a malfunction, he muttered to himself, though his voice sounded strange in the empty hall. His heart was already beating faster. He knew he should leave it alone, just clean up the hallway and report it in the morning. But something made him take a closer look. From the shadows near the storage bay, a faint glow appeared. Marcus squinted. At first he thought it was a reflection from the metal panels, but the glow moved. It was soft and flickering, almost like a tiny flame. Then he saw it. A small creature no bigger than a child limped toward him. Its skin shimmered slightly in the dim light, scales tiny and fragile. Its wings were torn, hanging unevenly at its sides, and its eyes glowed dimly, a soft blue that seemed both curious and scared. The hatchling looked like a dragon from the old Earth legends Marcus had read about as a kid, but real, and very, very small. The creature tilted its head, watching him. Then in a soft, hoarse voice it spoke. "Please? I need a place to sleep." Marcus froze. He blinked. He had heard strange languages in the station before, alien voices from the different species that worked or visited here, but none like this. This voice sounded weak and human-like, but fragile, trembling as if it could break at any moment. He swallowed hard. You can talk?" he whispered. The hatchling nodded slowly, wincing as one of its wings twitched painfully. I can't fly. Not now. Cold, and danger." Marcus's mind raced. His first thought was to call security, but something stopped him. He looked into the hatchling's eyes and saw fear, not aggression. There was no anger, no malice. Just small, trembling fear and trust. Somehow the little creature had chosen him. Against every rule he had ever followed on the station, Marcus made a decision. He quickly looked around. The corridor was empty. No cameras directly pointed here. If anyone saw him hiding this creature, he could lose his job, or worse. But he couldn't leave it there, alone in the cold metal halls where security would probably find it, and he shivered at the thought. He couldn't imagine what they would do. "Come with me," he said quietly. He bent down carefully, keeping his hands low so he didn't scare the hatchling. The creature limped forward, wobbling on its small legs. Marcus guided it toward the maintenance room at the end of the hall. Inside, Marcus had a small storage closet for supplies, cleaning equipment, and old spare uniforms. It wasn't big, but it was warm compared to the rest of the station. He placed a blanket on the floor and gently helped the hatchling lie down. "You're safe, for now," Marcus whispered. He could feel the hatchling trembling. "Don't worry. I won't let anyone hurt you." The hatchling curled up, its tiny body shaking. Marcus sat on the floor beside it, unsure what to do next. He didn't even know what to call it. Dragon? Alien? Hatchling? It didn't matter. Right now, it was a creature in need of care, and he was the only one there to give it. Hours passed. Marcus stayed in the maintenance room, keeping watch. The station's normal night hum surrounded them, but he was hyper-aware of every sound. The occasional clang of a loose panel, the distant steps of a security drone, each noise made him flinch. He imagined them finding the hatchling and taking it away, and his chest tightened. The creature finally spoke again, in a whisper so soft Marcus had to lean close. "Thank you." Marcus smiled faintly, his heart warming despite the fear. "Don't mention it. You're lucky I was here." They sat together in silence, the hatchling resting its head against his knee. Marcus stroked its small scales gently, marveling at how fragile it was. Its eyes closed slowly, exhausted from the day's fear and flight. He could feel its small heart beating under his hand, fast and irregular, and he knew he would protect it no matter what. Somewhere in the station, alarms would eventually sound. Somewhere people were searching for the hatchling. Marcus didn't know what awaited them or him, but he made a silent promise. This small creature would not be left alone. Not tonight. Not ever if he could help it. As the hours went on, Marcus finally allowed himself a deep breath. The hatchling slept, and for the first time in months the maintenance room felt like a safe place. Outside, the station remained vast, cold, and empty, but inside, a human janitor and a lost dragon hatchling shared a quiet, fragile moment that would change both of their lives forever. Marcus didn't know it yet, but this night was the beginning of something bigger. Something that would shake the station, challenge rules, and show the galaxy the value of human kindness. For now, all he knew was that a small, fragile dragon was counting on him, and he wouldn't let it down. Marcus woke early the next day, though the station was still quiet. He had hardly slept, keeping one ear alert for any noise outside the maintenance room. The hatchling, curled up on the blanket he had laid down, opened its eyes slowly. Marcus leaned closer and smiled softly. "Morning," he said quietly. "How are you feeling?" The hatchling blinked, its small blue eyes brightening a little. "Hungry," it whispered. Marcus nodded. He had been thinking about what to feed it. He searched the supply closet and found some nutrient packs meant for experimental animals, along with some warm water. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. He mixed the packs carefully, warming them slightly, and set them on the floor. Emberlyn, he had decided to call her that after she whimpered softly when he touched her, nuzzled at the food, her tiny claws barely making a sound on the metal floor. She ate slowly but deliberately, and Marcus felt a wave of relief. Each bite made her stronger, more alert. "Better?" he asked when she finished. Emberlyn nodded weakly, and for the first time she tried to flap her wings. They twitched awkwardly, one bent at a strange angle. Marcus frowned. "We'll have to fix that. Don't worry. I'll think of something." Over the next few days, Marcus took careful steps to make the maintenance room safer for Emberlyn. He set up a small heat lamp, and blankets in a corner created a little nest. He spoke softly to her, sometimes reading aloud from his old Earth books, hoping the sound of his voice would comfort her. Emberlyn began to respond more clearly. At first it was gestures, tiny movements of her head or wings, but soon she spoke in short words. "My family, gone," she whispered one evening, her voice trembling. Marcus crouched beside her, gently resting a hand on her scales. "What happened?" Emberlyn blinked slowly, trying to focus. "Visit, gone wrong. People, scared. Took me away." She shivered, curling into herself. "Alone." Marcus's chest tightened. She had been separated from her family just like that while trying to do something important. He didn't understand all the details, but he knew enough. Emberlyn was not dangerous. She was a scared, lost creature who needed help. "You won't be alone here," he said firmly. "I'll take care of you. I promise." As Emberlyn rested, Marcus listened to the hum of the station. It was quiet, but he could sense something changing. Security drones had been passing by more often, their lights scanning corridors with sharp precision. He had heard murmurs from the few humans he trusted, rumors about a bioweapon being loose on the station. They didn't know what it really was, but their fear had spread quickly. Marcus's stomach turned. The station was lying about Emberlyn. They were calling her dangerous, calling her a weapon, when all she wanted was warmth, food, and safety. And now, by hiding her, he had become the one breaking the rules. Each day he became more careful. He scheduled his cleaning routes to avoid security patrols and learned which cameras were off or blind. Emberlyn stayed mostly in the corner under the heat lamp, her small body glowing faintly in the warm light. She had started to trust him completely. Sometimes she would rest her head on his shoulder, letting out soft sighs, and Marcus would feel a strange happiness he had never known. One afternoon, Emberlyn tried to speak more clearly. "Marcus, friends?" He smiled, brushing his hand over her tiny head. "Yes, friends. Always." She tilted her head, her glowing eyes shining. "Family, gone." "You, family?" Marcus paused. He had no family here, not really. Just the memories of Earth, and the quiet solitude of his life on the station. But looking at Emberlyn, he realized he had someone to care for, and someone who trusted him completely. "I guess I can be your family," he said softly. Her small wings twitched, and a faint blue light glimmered across her scales. It was as if she understood fully, and a tiny smile formed on her face. Marcus felt a warmth in his chest, stronger than anything he had felt in months. But danger was close. He could feel it. One night, as he returned from a supply run, he noticed security doors locking down more sections of the station. He overheard two guards speaking in the hall. "Did you hear? The council is serious this time. They want the creature captured by morning," one said. Marcus froze. "Captured? Emberlyn?" He slipped back to the maintenance room quickly, heart pounding. Emberlyn looked up as he entered, sensing his fear. "Danger?" she asked quietly. Yes, he whispered, crouching beside her. But I won't let them take you. Emberlin's small claws brushed against his hand, and Marcus knew she trusted him more than anyone else in this cold, mechanical station. He had to find a way to protect her, but he didn't know how. The station was huge, security was tight, and if they discovered them together, there would be consequences he couldn't even imagine. That night, he lay beside her on the blanket, thinking of ways to keep her safe. He watched her breathing slow as she fell asleep, trusting him completely. He felt both fear and determination. This small, fragile creature depended on him. No one else would help her. Marcus realized something he hadn't before. Helping Emberlin was not just about kindness. It was about courage, about doing what was right even when the odds were against him. The station might see her as a weapon, as a problem to remove, but he knew the truth. Emberlin was not dangerous. She was lost, scared, and alone, and that alone made her precious. He made a silent promise that night. He would keep her safe. He would defy the rules if he had to. And somehow together they would find a way through the coming storm. Outside the maintenance room, the station lights flickered, and the distant hum of machinery sounded louder in the quiet halls. Somewhere, patrols moved, unaware that a small, glowing hatchling and a human janitor were quietly plotting to survive. They were alone but not afraid, not yet. Marcus gently stroked Emberlin's small head and whispered, "We'll make it. I'll figure it out. Just trust me." She purred softly in response, a tiny musical sound that filled the room with hope. In that moment, Marcus realized that helping this little dragon might cost him everything he had. But for the first time in a long while he didn't care. The days passed slowly, but Marcus could see changes in Emberlin. Her wings were healing, the small tears closing, and the faint glow in her eyes grew brighter. She moved more confidently around the small corner of the maintenance room that Marcus had cleared for her. Every day she seemed stronger, more alert, more alive. But along with her growth, strange things began happening. At first, Marcus thought he was imagining it. A broken cleaning robot that had sat in the supply closet for months suddenly powered on when he walked past. The airlock door at the far end of the hall, which had jammed for weeks, slid open smoothly when he reached for it. Even the small lights above flickered to life when he entered the maintenance room. Emberlin noticed his confusion and tilted her small head. "It helps me," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "You, humans, come, strong. Your energy makes safe." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" She stretched her tiny wings and glowed faintly, the light pulsing with her heartbeat. "Humans, rare. Come, strong, inside. Stabilize, dragon." Marcus blinked. "Stabilize, dragon?" Emberlin's eyes sparkled. "Yes, trust me. I know. You, calm. Not afraid. You, safe." Marcus leaned back, trying to understand. For weeks he had been afraid of security, afraid of getting caught, afraid of failing her. But somehow, Emberlin seemed to sense something deeper in him. His quiet determination, his patience, and his calm mind, they were making her stronger, helping her recover faster than he could imagine. "It's you," Emberlin whispered. "You, safe for me. Others, not safe." Marcus nodded slowly. He had never thought of humans as special. Most of the station crew saw themselves as workers, janitors, engineers, or scientists, nothing extraordinary. But Emberlin's words made him feel a strange pride. Even a human janitor could make a difference in the galaxy if they stayed calm and chose to care. 4 days Marcus and Emberlin stayed hidden. He kept her safe, cleaned the maintenance room, and made small improvements to her corner. Sometimes he talked to her about Earth, about stars, and the quiet places he remembered as a child. Emberlin listened, glowing faintly as if the stories themselves gave her strength. But the station was changing too. Security patrols increased, alarms that had been silent for weeks were tested more frequently, and whispers spread among the low-rank crew. There were rumors of a bioweapon that had been seen moving in the maintenance section. No one knew what it really was, but fear grew quickly. Marcus had to be more careful than ever. One evening, as he returned from a supply run, he heard voices near the hall. 2 security officers were talking in low tones. "She's here," one said. "The council wants her captured before sunrise. No mistakes." Marcus's heart froze. "Emberlin, captured." He ducked into the shadows and listened. The officers moved on, unaware of him. He slid back into the maintenance room and found Emberlin staring at him. "They, looking for me?" she asked quietly, her small claws trembling. "Yes," he whispered. "But I won't let them take you." Emberlin blinked and moved closer. "You trust." "I trust you," Marcus said softly. And you trust me. That's enough. Days passed and the tension grew. The station crew began noticing Marcus's quiet defiance. Small things, he ignored orders to report the hatchling, refused to hand her over, and even managed to move her safely from one corner to another when security was near. It was subtle, almost invisible to the higher ranks, but the low-rank workers saw it. They saw a human janitor standing up quietly for what was right, without shouting, without anger, without breaking anything. Slowly, whispers started among them. If he can defy them quietly, maybe we can too, one worker said. Another nodded, looking at Marcus as he mopped a corridor, his hands steady, his eyes calm. The idea of questioning orders, of thinking for themselves, had never occurred to them. Now it seemed possible. Meanwhile, Emberlin's energy continued to grow. Marcus noticed her glow intensifying whenever he was near, and small objects in the room began responding to her as well. A small cleaning drone hovered steadily, even though it had been broken for weeks. A toolbox slid quietly to the floor when she called softly. Marcus realized that humans and dragons shared a rare connection, one that most species on the station would never understand. One night, Marcus asked softly, "Why me? Why did you choose me?" Emberlin's small face glowed faintly, and she looked up at him with her bright, glowing eyes. "You calm. Not afraid. You strong inside. You help me. Others fear." Marcus nodded slowly. He had never thought of himself as strong. He was a janitor, a simple man. But looking at Emberlin, he realized that strength did not always mean power or authority. Sometimes strength was patience, kindness, and the courage to stand quietly for what was right. The station would soon discover her. Marcus knew it. But he was ready. He would not hand Emberlin over. Even if the alarms rang, even if security stormed the maintenance room, he would hold his ground. His quiet defiance was spreading, inspiring others to think for themselves, to question, to act with conscience. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt the weight of purpose. It was terrifying and exhilarating. He was no longer just a janitor. He was a protector, a guide, and perhaps the only one who could keep Emberlin safe until she could fly again. Emberlin curled up beside him that night, resting her glowing head against his shoulder. "We ready?" she whispered. Marcus smiled softly, brushing his hand over her scales. "We'll be ready. Together." Outside, the station lights flickered, shadows shifting as the hum of machinery continued. Somewhere in the hallways, security moved closer, unaware of the quiet resistance growing among the workers. Marcus and Emberlin were alone but not powerless. Something was changing on the station. A quiet defiance, a strange, glowing energy, and the courage to do what was right were spreading, and it had only just begun. Marcus held Emberlin gently, watching the soft pulse of her glow. He knew the coming days would test him. He knew the station would push harder, search closer, and maybe even threaten everything he had. But for the first time he understood that human calm, human kindness, and human resilience could do things no weapon or rule ever could. And with Emberlin by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. The station's alarms rang suddenly, shattering the quiet hum of machinery. Marcus froze, holding Emberlin close. Her small body pressed against his chest, wings trembling, eyes wide. He had heard alarms before, but this one was different, stronger, urgent, commanding attention across every deck. A deep, vibrating roar shook the metal walls. It was unlike any sound he had ever heard on the station. It rolled through the corridors, making lights flicker and panels vibrate. Marcus held Emberlin tighter, fear and awe filling him. She looked up at him, her small glowing eyes full of recognition and hope. "They're here," she whispered. Marcus blinked. "Who?" "Mother. Astrion," Emberlin said softly. "Very strong. Very powerful." Before he could respond, a section of the main docking bay doors exploded outward, not with violence but with raw power. Blue flames of energy licked the edges of the massive doors as a sleek, enormous dragon stepped inside. Her scales shimmered with a deep silver-blue glow, and her wings spread wide, spanning nearly half the docking bay. Her eyes, bright and intelligent, scanned the room carefully. Marcus's jaw dropped. He had seen pictures of dragons and holographic history files, but Astrion was real, massive, and radiating authority. Behind her, smaller ships hovered silently, carrying diplomatic envoys and their guards. The station personnel scrambled, unsure whether to attack or retreat. Emberlin let out a small squeak and wriggled from Marcus's arms. She ran forward, and Astrion lowered her massive head to meet her daughter. The hatchling chirped softly, pressing against her mother. The sight was beautiful, terrifying, and oddly comforting all at once. Marcus slowly stood, keeping his distance but watching in awe. Emberlin's mother turned her eyes toward him, and for a moment, Marcus felt a weight pressing on him. This dragon wasn't just powerful. She was ancient, wise, and somehow, judging him. The station leadership, all gathered in a control room overlooking the docking bay, looked stunned. They had expected panic, maybe a fight, perhaps the destruction of the station. Instead, Astrion spoke in a voice that resonated through every speaker, calm but commanding. "Where is my child?" she demanded. A tense silence filled the station. Security officers tried to respond, but no words came out. Marcus swallowed hard, his mind racing. He realized now that the station leader's plan to capture or experiment on Emberlin had failed, not because of strategy, but because one human janitor had refused to follow orders. Marcus stepped forward, feeling Emberlin at his side. "She's safe," he said quietly but firmly. "I hid her. I protected her." Astrian's eyes softened as they focused on him. She slowly lowered her head closer, her voice gentler now. "You? A human?" Marcus nodded. "Yes. I don't know if I'm brave, but I didn't let anyone hurt her." The council, now realizing the truth, began to scramble. Data streams revealed their secret plans to experiment on Emberlin. Reports, hidden orders, and unauthorized research files showed how the station leadership had lied, calling her a dangerous weapon when she was just a child, a lost creature separated from her family. Gasps filled the control room. Aliens from other species aboard the station whispered among themselves. This wasn't just about rules anymore. It was about betrayal, secrecy, and a human janitor standing against the lies. Astrion lowered her massive head fully, her glowing eyes locking on Marcus. The silence was thick, almost unbearable. Finally she spoke, her voice carrying through the docking bay, through every hallway, and into every corner where the crew could hear. "You protected a royal child," she said. "When entire governments failed, when councils lied, when officers betrayed trust, you chose kindness. You chose protection. For that I honor you." Marcus felt his knees weaken. He had expected punishment, maybe reprimand, perhaps even exile for breaking the station's rules. But this was something else entirely. He didn't understand fully, but he felt pride, warmth, and relief all at once. Emberlin chirped happily, pressing against her mother's chest. She looked at Marcus with glowing eyes that said everything words could not. "You brave," she whispered. The other workers, the low-rank crew who had quietly noticed Marcus's defiance, now stared openly. For the first time they saw that courage did not always roar. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was simple, steady, and unseen until the right moment. Marcus's act of kindness had changed the room, the station, and even their view of humans. Astrian's wings folded elegantly as she turned her gaze back to the council. "Your actions endangered my child," she said, her voice firm again. "You will answer for your lies. But the human who protected her, he will not be harmed. He represents what your station forgot: trust, patience, and the courage to do right even when it is difficult." The council members shifted uncomfortably, realizing they had underestimated Marcus, and the quiet, steadfast power of human resilience. Marcus felt Emberlin's small claws brushing against his leg. He looked down at her, smiling softly. She was safe finally. Her mother had arrived, and the threat that had loomed over them for weeks had been replaced with awe, respect, and protection. Even the other species present, who had come with Astrion on her diplomatic mission, whispered among themselves. Some bowed their heads in acknowledgement, some stared in wonder. They had seen a human janitor stand quietly against an entire station's plan, and they understood something profound. Sometimes the smallest, simplest acts of courage mattered most. Astrion bent her head one last time to Marcus. "You have my gratitude," she said softly. "You protected a life when no one else would. That is more valuable than any rule, any order, any command." Marcus bowed slightly, unsure how to respond. Words felt small. But Emberlin chirped happily and rubbed against his shoulder. That, he thought, was enough. The station, once tense and full of fear, felt different now. There was a sense of awe, a quiet respect, and a new understanding. Marcus had shown that courage could come from anyone, anywhere, and that kindness could ripple farther than rules, security, or authority. As he stood there, watching Emberlin reunited with her mother, Marcus realized something important. This night had changed everything. Not just for him, not just for Emberlin, but for the station, the crew, and every species present. One simple act of care had rewritten the story. And for the first time, Marcus felt truly at peace. The station felt different in the days after Astrian's arrival. The council had been removed from power, replaced by a temporary leadership that immediately began reviewing every system, every law, and every report. It was clear that the old rules, the secret experiments, and the lies about Emberlin were no longer acceptable. Marcus watched quietly as new orders were posted across the station. Policies were written to protect smaller species, ensuring they could travel safely without fear of being captured or experimented upon. There were new protections for non-combat workers like himself, giving janitors, engineers, and support crews a voice they had never had before. The station was changing, slowly but surely, and it all began with the actions of one human and one small dragon. He cleaned the hallways as usual, mopping and polishing, but there was a new lightness in the air. Crew members who had once ignored him now nodded in greeting, some even offering small smiles. Marcus had always been quiet, unnoticed, and that was exactly how he liked it. But now he realized that his actions had inspired others. People were beginning to think differently. They were beginning to care more. One afternoon, a representative from Astrian's diplomatic fleet approached him. She carried a small data pad with an offer. "Marcus Hale," she said, her tone polite but firm, "you have protected a royal child, stood against injustice, and shown courage that few in the galaxy possess. You are offered wealth, rank, and influence. Any position you choose within the interstellar councils or fleets can be yours." Marcus blinked. He had expected nothing. He had never wanted attention. He had never wanted rank or wealth. He had only wanted to help Emberlin. Thank you," he said slowly. "But I don't need rank. I don't want power. He paused, looking down at Emberlin, who had been hovering nearby, wings twitching nervously. "I just want my old job back and a warm place for Emberlin to visit when she wants." The envoy's eyes widened slightly in surprise. "You refuse the highest honors in the galaxy, for a janitor's job?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Yes, that's all I need. That's all I ever wanted." Emberlin chirped happily, flapping her small wings, and landed on his shoulder. Marcus stroked her tiny head. She was safe. She was free. And she had a home where she could rest any time she needed. News of Marcus's quiet choice spread across the station. Crew members, diplomats, and even alien species visiting the station began to see humans in a new light. They were no longer just workers, conquerors, or colonizers. They were protectors. They were quiet, thoughtful, and kind, capable of courage that was measured not by strength or firepower, but by patience, empathy, and quiet action. Marcus returned to his routine. He cleaned the hallways, polished the metal floors, and tended to his little corner of the station. But life was no longer the same. He noticed small gestures from others, someone offering a cup of water, another worker quietly repairing a door he couldn't reach. Humans and non-humans alike were learning to act with conscience, to stand quietly for what was right. Emberlin's visits became regular. Sometimes she would perch on a high shelf and watch Marcus work. Sometimes she would curl up beside him on the blanket he had kept ready. She had grown stronger, more confident, and even playful at times. Marcus laughed softly as she twirled in the air, her small wings creating faint glimmers of light. One evening, after finishing his shift, Marcus sat on the floor in his corner with Emberlin beside him. The heat lamp glowed warmly, casting soft light over the walls. Emberlin rested her tiny head on his lap, her small claws brushing gently against him. "You changed," she whispered softly, looking up at him. Marcus smiled faintly. "No, you changed too," he said. "We both changed. Because we cared and we stayed calm. That's all it took." Emberlin closed her eyes, purring softly. Marcus felt her heartbeat under his hand, steady and strong. The station outside was alive, lights humming softly, workers moving through the halls. But in this small room time seemed to slow. One human and one dragon had made a difference. One small act of kindness had shifted the balance of power, reshaped perception, and reminded the galaxy what courage really meant. The news reports from other sectors began to spread. Stories of Marcus Hale and Emberlin appeared in transmission feeds, showing how humans had quietly protected a dragon hatchling and changed a station's entire leadership. Diplomats and species across the galaxy began to speak differently about humans, not as conquerors or competitors, but as steady protectors who chose kindness even when no one was watching. Marcus listened quietly to the reports, smiling faintly. He did not care about fame or glory. He cared about Emberlin, about safety, about quiet courage that didn't need recognition. That was enough for him. Night fell and the station's lights dimmed to low levels. Marcus and Emberlin sat together, the warmth of the heat lamp surrounding them. She yawned and curled up, her small glowing body resting against him. Marcus brushed her tiny wings gently, marveling at how far she had come. She was safe, she was loved, and she had a home, one she could always return to. As he watched her drift into sleep, Marcus felt a deep satisfaction. The galaxy had changed because of one small act. A simple choice to care, to protect, to stand quietly against injustice, had reshaped perceptions, inspired courage, and reminded everyone that even the smallest beings and the quietest humans could make a difference. Outside the maintenance room, the station hummed steadily. Security systems ran smoothly, new laws were enforced, and crew members went about their tasks with a new sense of conscience. Somewhere in the docking bays, Emberlin's mother and her fleet watched over the station, confident that her child was safe and that Marcus had done something extraordinary. Inside, Marcus yawned softly and leaned back, Emberlin curled against him. The soft glow of her scales and the warm light of the heat lamp filled the small room. It was peaceful. It was quiet. And it was perfect. He whispered gently, "Good night, Emberlin. Sleep well. The galaxy is different now, and it's safer because of you, because of us." The small dragon purred softly, closing her eyes completely. Marcus smiled and rested his hand on her tiny head. One human, one dragon, one quiet act of kindness had changed the course of many lives. And that was all that mattered. The stars outside the station shimmered quietly, unaware of the little room where history had shifted, where courage had been measured not by strength but by care. And Marcus knew, as he drifted into sleep, that sometimes the smallest choices left the biggest mark on the galaxy.